I am Sam Farley and you are joining me currently on the way from Karaganda in Kazakhstan to the Karlag, a famous gulag, the biggest in Kazakhstan, and it's about 40 minutes drive outside of the city. I will see you there. An interesting car journey. Took about 40 minutes. When the Yandex turned up, it was a red car. It had one black panel, one blue panel. I was a little worried it was going to be dangerous. Got in the car, started putting on my seatbelt. He told me, nope, no seatbelt, don't put it on. Slightly more scared. All in all, it was very good. In the heart of Kazakhstan's vast steppe lies a place where the silence is heavy with history. This is Karlag, once one of the largest and most infamous labour camps of the Soviet Gulag system. Today, it's a museum, but for decades it was a site of suffering, forced labour and political repression.
Now, unfortunately, I'm hiding in a toilet at the moment. We've been told that we can't video. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to take footage of some of the stuff here. Then I'm going to do a little voiceover over the top, explain what some of it is. It's incredibly interesting, but yeah, here we go.
I think there were some crossed wires, and when the guide said they didn't want filming of the tour, I think they actually meant they didn't want filming of the specific tour in terms of what they're saying, but to film stuff around Karlag was absolutely fine. However, you're stuck with me now, you're getting the voiceover, so buckle up, grab something to eat, and let's roll. There was a lot that I found difficult to stomach around this place. Seeing photos of real people that suffered here really brings it home just how serious and how horrible this was. But this section here that you can see, although it's a reproduction and the original sort of cell buildings have been destroyed, this is now in what was an admin building. You can see the conditions that people lived in, people were forced to live in, and it really, you can't help but feel it hit home. So, there were two types of people in Karlag. Firstly, prisoners. When the Bolsheviks came to power, they introduced something called Article 58. This meant that anyone who was a threat to the nation, the clergy, they didn't want religion. Intellectuals, they didn't want people who were free thinkers. Political opponents, they didn't want anybody who wasn't pushing their narrative. These people would get rounded up and sent to various camps around the USSR. This being one of them. Then there was the deportations. And with this, people from various ethnic groups were rounded up on the basis of their ethnic group and they were sent here. This happened, I believe, I think it was late 30s or early 40s. So you had, for example, the largest group was Germans because of the war. They were rounded up, brought here. And whereas the prisoners, they got put into, well, they had to make their own cells originally, but then people were put into effectively cells, camps, buildings, and they were obviously given very, very little food. You had the people who were deported here who, in many ways, a different way of life, but probably just as bad. They weren't given somewhere to live. They had to just deal with that stuff, work it out on their own. They were paid a very small amount to be here, but they didn't really have a choice. They weren't allowed out of the Karlag region. They were just here for life, for good, which is pretty horrible. So they'd be working on the farms, working in agriculture. They'd be mining, being part of the war effort by being down those mines, helping create various things and firing the Allies to the wind. These are real people, real lives, real families torn apart because of ideology. And yes, what you're seeing now, this is where the babies that were born in the camp grew up, basically. which is truly, truly terrifying, as was the way people got treated if they went out of line. As you can see here, yeah, you don't want to be tied up and tortured in here. People died in here, and it was a very horrible experience. One of the things I loved here, and it's just about to come up on screen, is this room. It was lit in red, but on the wall, it's very dark. You can make out Stalin's eyes, and this was to signify that wherever you were, whatever you're doing, Stalin was watching. As well as stories and witness testimonies about what happened here, artists, after their time at Karlag, produced works that detailed how they felt, how they experienced it here. As somebody who finds the history of the USSR absolutely fascinating, I loved how these rooms were decorated just as they were at the time. So here on the wall, you have Lenin at his desk, you have Stalin guiding people around the map. And around this whole place, there were so many relics from the Soviet era, which I absolutely loved. One thing that I really have to reiterate here is the sheer size, the scale of Karlag. So, as a dark tourist, I've been to places such as Auschwitz. It's harrowing, but while a big place, it is still something that you can see in a day in terms of seeing it all because of the size. Karlag is absolutely gigantic. It's actually over 67,000 square kilometers. That's 26,000 square miles. That's basically the same size as the whole of Ireland. It's 3 times the size of Wales. It is absolutely huge. So whilst I thought I could see everything, that certainly isn't happening. So it's all about coming to this museum, soaking it up, and really learning about the whole area as a whole. So, a very interesting look. So much I didn't realise, I didn't know the extent of what was done in Kazakhstan in terms of gulags. Obviously, in my mind, when you say gulag, beside Call of Duty Warzone, the first thing I think about is Siberia. And it wasn't all Siberia. Russia sent so many people here, and this was the biggest gulag in the entire Soviet Union. Its name is Karlag, which means Karaganda Gulag, work camp. This here, this building that the museum itself is situated in, was the administrative building. But you can see all these buildings around that people now live in. Normal people like live in here. That's a house. That's a house. These used to be officers' houses. So it's kind of crazy that something that was so horrible is now being lived in. There are plenty of statues to that Soviet era across Kazakhstan that are no longer there. Here we have the famous hammer and sickle, and over here we have another statue of Vladimir Lenin. Well, that is it from me at Karlag in Dolinka. A really interesting place to visit, harrowing place to visit, and a place that potentially we don't get taught enough about in our schools. We know obviously all about the evils of what the Germans did during the war in terms of their concentration camps, and whilst this is very different, it is a gulag, it isn't a concentration camp. I think this is something we should be taught about. It's really quite horrible. But definitely if you're in Karaganda, 40-minute journey away, really worth coming here. Hugely interesting place. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please like, and please, if you enjoyed, hey, why not leave a comment?